affordable was one of the goals.
Okay.
But also was trying to build a lifestyle around less life stuff and more lifestyle.
Less life stuff. And
Less
more
stuff.
lifestyle. Okay.
Because it's the style that makes us happy, not the stuff.
It's not the stuff that makes us happy. So.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm in southern Vancouver Island. 4 years ago, we were at this very spot with Gord and Ann Baird sitting in front of their cob tool shed with a model of the house they planned to build. Now, 4 years later, we're living in it. They're living in it. We're here. Gord, Ann, thanks for joining me. And I gotta say, you've got a dream come true that you're living in. It's a pretty astounding house. An eco-sensible house, you call it. Can you tell us about it?
That's correct. Thanks for coming back. It's great
Love
to
it.
have you here in our home and show that we did what we said we were
Yes,
going to do.
Yes, yes.
It's pretty exciting, even after we've been living in it now for a year and a half. It has been a dream come true. And we created a home that functions as part of the ecosystem around us, where the home is not separate from the land, where resources and energy and water flow between the home and the land. There's no line that separates it. So to try to create a living building, and with all the different systems, with the water systems, the energy systems, all the natural materials you use to create the house, to create a sustainable home for a multi-generational family of 6.
It's a tall order, I will add, in a relatively small footprint.
Yes, 1,550 square feet is the footprint, and the whole house is about 2,150 square feet.
That's
So
inside, though.
That's inside. Walls are 2 feet thick, so it's a little bit bigger outside.
2 feet thick.
Yeah.
So, okay, I mean, tell us, keep going.
Well, the one difference is that when you were here last time, we were building a cob woodworking shop, and this was going to be a straw bale building. We ended up going cob because we fell in love with it.
Totally fell in love with cob. Just the ability to build with handfuls of mud, one handful at a time, is just very empowering. And you can create, it's just, as kids, we love playing in the mud, and we never lose that. Once I got over my fear of getting dirty, there was no stopping me. And we just fell in love with it. But in order to build a house out of cob, we had to make some improvements, because cob can be a very labor-intensive and very slow process. And we also wanted to do load-bearing cob, which means you have to build the walls up first and then put the roof on. And you have to do it all in 1 year. So
wait a minute, let's go back. Just say, load-bearing like a standard house, so that you can carry the weight of the roof, right? But because you're using clay, tell us what cob is.
Cob is traditionally, it's clay, sand, and straw. Where clay is the natural glue, straw is the natural rebar, and sand is the aggregate. It provides a compression strength. So that when you mix it together in a very malleable state, you just stack it hand by hand. And so in essence, the walls are all monolithic.
yeah, and so this house is the first of its kind in North America, because it's legal, it's code approved, and it's 2-story load-bearing cob, and fully engineered for earthquakes, and so by building load-bearing cob, we actually reduce a lot of the cost of the structure as well, because you don't have to build your structure first. The mud walls are the structure.
And you have to build it in the first year because the cob in the year.
Weather dependent.
Yeah, weather dependent. You can only build when it's not pouring rain, right?
So that's right. We're in a rainy part. Yeah. Okay.
And we
Pacific
wanted to
Northwest.
you got to get your roof on, and you can't put your roof on until you got your walls up.
Because that's your structure.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. You must have been busy.
Oh, we were busy. But when we built the little cob workshop, where we fell in love with cob, we had to improve upon the speed of building with cob, or else we'd still be building our house. So traditionally, cob is mixed by foot, and that's how we did the workshop. But when we built the house, we brought in the old rototiller, my parents' old rototiller, and we consumed 25 liters of gas to build the house with that rototiller. Very small carbon footprint for a house that can last 500 years.
Yeah. 500% quicker.
Yeah, 500% quicker. We actually did the calculations.
And I'm sure that you are training other people are learning this method.
We've actually moved beyond the rototiller. We're now using a bobcat.
A bobcat.
It picks the materials up, it mixes it, it moves them to your wall, and it lifts them up for you.
Wow.
And it's still a very small carbon footprint.
I would imagine that it's true.
Yeah.
Some of the characteristics of your house, and we will show people the lovely. I want to. It's hard to describe. It's a very organic shape. You know, there's not rectilinear forms. There's a kind of quiet and containment, but not a close quality. I mean, it's spacious. My partner Robin, the videographer here, says that it feels like the house is like 3 times inside, 3 times larger than the footprint, and it does feel that way. And I think it's mostly because you're not dealing with corners.
Yep.
You know, you're dealing with flowing forms. So I just want to add that comfort for me as a visitor is quite remarkable here.
It's a very comfortable, pleasing house to live in. We feel safe, and you know, the organic shapes, and a house that you create with your own hands has that other. You know, you really bond with it that way because every handful of mud was placed there.
Yeah.
Lovingly, I would bet, and sometimes hard work. Back to the functioning part of this, one of your other goals that I remember from then was you were planning to have, as close to a 0 carbon footprint, so, and using the water well and so on. Can you tell us how you did in all that regard?
So the systems of the house, on all the systems we made a conscious choice as to whether they were completely automated or to whether we bumped into them. And so, for example, our solar PV system, which does electricity, it's completely automated. We don't have to think about it.
So you have solar panels on the roof and whatever to run electricity in the house.
We have solar thermal evacuated tubes, which generate hot water, and that hot water is then in a combination system that does both our domestic hot water out of our taps, but it also runs through the floors. So
even these benches.
The benches and the earthen floors.
I'm noticing it's a cool day today, and I am totally comfortable. It's like, I mean, the floors, and even upstairs, you said.
Yep.
So
even upstairs, and that's sort of the fancy stuff. But when you get into the stuff that we bump into on a regular basis, we've got our gray water systems. So, and they were hooked into worm biofilters that Ann designed.
Worm biofilters?
Yeah.
Okay.
It works as a surge trap, a grease trap, and the worms eat all the little bits of food and clean it up so that we can send it then to irrigate some fruit trees. So we actually get to harvest worm castings from our gray water.
Fabulous. I mean, so you're fertilizing as well as using your rainwater.
That's that sense of connection.
So worms are like your pet. So if you're putting something down there and you kill your worms, maybe you shouldn't be using it, right?
Yes, we can learn from our worms.
Yeah.
So you're not using, cleaning solutions or whatever coming out your traps that are going to poison the land or your worms, your
Exactly,
friends.
because that's ultimately your food as well.
Yeah.
So it closes the loop.
Right.
We're connected to the land.
And we have composting toilets, so we use the humanure system with buckets, and we compost all our, what other people would call a waste, but that's actually a resource because we use it in all our food gardens. And just because we're big on educating, we take that material that's composted, we send it out, we get it researched and tested to show that it's safe to be used in food gardens that kids can play in it, type of stuff. So.
And I know, and we'll I know that we'll glance at it later, but it's like you're keeping it up to a particular hot temperature, right, so that the pathogens are killed.
That's right.
So you've had it tested. I want to go back for a second here on, finish the systems, but I have a question.
Oh my goodness, there's so many systems. What am I missing?
Yeah, well,
Living
we're trying
water.
to create all these systems that are fully integrated, where you can't design one system without thinking about these other systems, and that's how an ecosystem works. And our home should be designed the same way an ecosystem works, where everything is balanced and playing off each other.
Yeah, like our living roof, for example.
A living roof, right?
So we have a living roof. Makes sense. The living roof for us does a couple things. It filters the rainwater because we have rainwater collection. As it filters it, it's also going to be growing the herbs and everything for our honeybees. It is keeping the heat down on the roof, which is tied directly to our solar PV panels, because the lower temperature that the PV panels are, the more they produce energy. So, stormwater management, rainwater collection, rainwater filtering, bees, it's just all interconnected.
And the best use of all is you can't see our house from Google Earth.
Yes! Oh, that's cool! Right, because it's just more ground, on top of the roofs.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. That's
It's also
great.
a great carbon sink, too. With this whole house and everything, our goal was to create basically a zero carbon house. Net zero, everything is to the best that we could, and still living within the cultural norms of our society. And, our carbon footprint, when we do the calculation, is pretty close to zero. Because this house can last 500 years and there's sequestered carbon within it, and we've regenerated a lot of the habitat by creating soil that we're creating in the house. It's all connected.
I'm going back to thinking about the inputs and the outputs, and one we mentioned but passed over is water. So where do you get your water for both your domestic use and your hydronics, you know, your heating, and your gardens? So to walk us through water for a minute.
Yeah, well, water in the hydronics is a closed system.
Okay.
So that's not water we drink. But our water that comes out of our tap is absolutely amazing groundwater. You know, so it comes from a well.
Okay.
But we only use about 10% of the average water in a regular household here. And we're a family of 6.
How do you manage that?
Well, we don't flush our toilets.
Yes.
Because we have waterless composting toilets. We
Yes.
don't have a bathtub. We have low flow showers. And we have low flow fittings on everything. And we're just really conscious of our water. And that's just indoor domestic use.
You also do laundry.
Yes.
You do have a laundry.
We have a front loader, high efficiency.
Just
we do
smelling.
laundry.
Thanks, Gord. I appreciate that you do the laundry. But so that's another water use. Okay, but
Absolutely.
you've got an efficient, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so our domestic use is very low, and the groundwater is fantastic, and we really want to preserve the groundwater, and our whole community is interested in preserving the groundwater. So education is a big part of that. So reducing our consumption first, and then we also have a rainwater harvesting system, like Gord mentioned, from the living roof. And we have 10,000 gallons of rainwater storage, and we use that for irrigating veggie gardens.
Does that 10,000 is a lot?
It's not enough.
Not
It's
enough.
not enough.
And I was wondering, okay.
Because we grow the majority of our family's food. We're, you know, just in our 4th year of growing food, and trying to grow everything except the grain so far, pretty much. And we estimate we need about 30,000 gallons.
And that's with, I'm assuming, this is assumption, drip irrigation and conservation methods of that type?
Yep.
Yeah,
Lots of
mulching and, you know, and we're learning. There's lots to learn. Yeah. But it's fun to learn.
And
You
every
know,
year
it's
is
not
a
about
little bit
getting it
different.
perfect.
Yes.
You know, it's about learning.
It would seem to me that you don't get it perfect, but you're
That's
solving
okay.
problems all the
Yeah.
time.
okay.
In building a house like this, I'm sure that had to happen.
Yeah, this house is not perfect. I mean, this,
We
you
like
know.
to say that perfectly imperfect. And we tell the kids that it's not perfect unless it's imperfect. If it's not perfect, then hey, then it's perfect. So this
Nothing
house is
is
a prime example of everything being slightly imperfect.
Well, you know, as you talked about your process earlier, what I really got was that you, as something had to be solved, you had to adapt to the new conditions, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it struck me that that's exactly what the natural world is doing all the time.
Absolutely.
You're adapting to
Yeah.
things, and that's part of your eco-sensible house building or living.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't design it all ahead of time. We designed a lot of it as we built it. As systems, you know, as we may have overlooked something or not thought through something because we're doing everything different. There's not like this book to follow and just kind of follow
No.
a process.
You
So
look
we
at-
make it up as we go, and sometimes we overlook things, and that just created an opportunity to be creative.
Yeah, I mean, we look, as we were building our mud house,
You know what MUD stands for, though?
What?
A modern utopian dwelling.
We had a situation
is.
where we're building our mud house, and we're learning as we're building, and we're talking how dirt cheap it is, and this and that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had a couple swallows that moved in up just under the eaves, and they built their mud house on our mud house.
Yeah, one mouthful at a time.
Yeah.
Barn swallows.
Like one handful of clay
One
at a time?
handful at a time.
Yes.
And they
Same
did
time.
it.
They
And
did
they
it.
worked together to do it.
And you know, and
you
I
did.
watch the swallows out here on the clothesline, and you know, and the male keeps turning to the female and keeps chattering, and the female, you know, is not paying any attention. Just, you know,
What do you say?
relating. And all the time he's just telling everybody out there, chirp cheap, that his house is chirp cheap.
But that was the greatest compliment for this bird that is disappearing in this part of the world. To actually choose to build their mud house on our mud house. That was a compliment. We were creating something that they recognized as natural. And we've actually created many places on this house for the birds to nest, and there's lots nesting on it. This last year, what did we have? 4 or 5 little nests in different places.
That's so special. You're
It's a
creating
compliment
habitat
from them.
for
Yeah.
habitat for yourselves and the others to
Yeah.
invite them back,
Yeah.
Yep.
and thus you're part of. Part of this.
It
Yeah.
becomes a living building in that way. It's got other things sharing it with it, not
We're not-
only on the roof, but
We're not separate. It's resources flow both
yeah.
ways.
And even when the house is done, say in 500 years, you know, when it's at the end of its useful life and it can't be repaired anymore, say in 500 years, what happens to it afterwards? It goes back to the earth. Nature will plant some seeds on it and it will grow food for something else because it's not toxic. The materials aren't toxic in this house.
How did you accomplish the non-toxic material? I'm thinking about sort of the more technical infrastructural things like the piping that goes in the floors, or at the moment you do have some toxic things, the solar panels on the roof,
Yes.
and the other gear for your electrical systems. And
Yeah,
stuff.
but the
It's not
structure of
perfect,
the
but
house
your
itself,
structure will melt beautifully back.
Yeah, a lot less plastic. We chose between some materials that were better than others. Like our windows are not PVC, they're all fiberglass frames. So there's different choices you can make with that. You can avoid PVC in many places.
It's
Recycled materials almost everywhere.
I guess the way that I would look at it is that if you're trying to do something and you're trying to do it in an affordable manner, the materials that have more processing involved in them are usually more expensive. And so by using 80% recycled wood, by using some of our own tree, by using clay, sand, straw, horse manure, you can't make many mistakes that way. You just can't make many mistakes that way. And we've applied for the Living Building Challenge, which is a green building platform that's just beyond LEED Platinum.
Beyond LEED, L-E-E-D, platinum. So the
Platinum.
Living Building Challenge.
Living Building Challenge, okay.
And that was created by the Cascadia Green Building Council, which is a conglomeration of the U.S. and Canadian Green Building Council everywhere where the salmon flow. And they have a list of red materials or red listed materials that you're not allowed to use.
Toxic materials, no mercury. So we don't even have compact fluorescents in the house. We have LED lights. But they do allow, I think, compact fluorescents,
But it's just
avoiding nasty things.
It's really easy to actually avoid nasty things.
That's one of the things that's really heartening to me in the 20 years since we started our house, is that more and more of this is available now. It's a good time. This is the right time to be building green, to be building earth sensible houses.
Think about what they were building 300 years ago, 200 years ago.
Yes.
It was pretty much all green.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So this little blip of the fossil fuel era that's now on its way out and will get us back to what they did 300, 400 years ago.
We'll use our energy a lot wiser. You can do a lot with efficiency. You reduce your energy consumption through lifestyle choices as well as efficiency. Lifestyle choices is simply having less stuff to plug in. Doesn't mean you have less quality of life. It just means you have a few less things to plug in.
So along that line, in terms of less stuff to plug in, how much do you use in terms of electrical energy?
We use about 10% of the average person in BC. So 90% less electricity.
What's our kilowatts per day?
Our kilowatts per day for 6 people is basically 6 kilowatts a day. So that works out to be 1 kilowatt per person per day.
That's quite a bit lower than the average use.
And that's just electricity, but you really got to factor in the entire energy usage. And energy for us comes in many forms, electricity being one of them, and we generate more than enough here with our 2 kilowatt array. But we also use propane for our cook stoves.
Yes.
That's our one fossil fuel, but it's very little. And we also use wood gasification for winter backup, and it ties into our solar hot water system. And that's very efficient. We only use about 3 cords of wood a year for this house. And that's for all of our hot water and heating.
And all of your heating. That's, and for a house for 6 people.
Yeah.
That's not that much at all. So what have we not covered sort of about the basic structure? Is there something we've forgotten here?
All the natural finishing. And
well, I want you to show us that up close. We'll definitely do that. I wanted to ask, if somebody were wanting to build something like this, what kind of advice could you give them? What kind of challenges did you run into that could help someone else?
The best advice, I think our best friend was naivety.
Well, you got to have a really good attitude and just a love for what you're doing and a real passion. And dive in and don't be scared of making mistakes. Mistakes aren't bad. They're learning opportunities.
Yeah. What's happened with us is that, we came into it with a lot of passion. It was a new relationship for one, which was probably a good thing. We knocked a lot of corners off each other as we were going through the process of building. But what we learned is that from incorporating, the people around you, you want to find people that, share the same values. So whether that's an electrician or a plumber, you want to be able to listen and understand, you know, the role of a building inspector, because they play a key role.
They can be your friend.
They can
help
be your
you.
friend.
They're there to help you.
You don't just try and do it in a bubble. And you need to have that support group around you. And we were really lucky that everybody that we bumped into was wonderful in that respect.
What was hard?
Well, it was challenging living in a trailer while we built. That was a challenge for us, because nature was our enemy and not our friend. Whereas we were fueled by the dream of building our home where nature was our friend and not our enemy. And that was so painfully obvious when we were living in the trailer. The wind and the rain and the storms and power outages.
Yeah.
But another challenge was bringing the 3 generations together. I became stepmom to Gord's 2 little kids when we got married 5.5 years ago, and they were 5 and 7 at the time. So they've, you know, pretty much grown up with us now, because they're 10 and 12, almost 13. And we also blended with my mom and dad. We all bought this piece of land together, and mom and dad sold the family home of 34 years and moved into a trailer behind ours. It was a bigger trailer than ours, so mom didn't dare complain. And mom cooked a lot of our family dinners when we were building and stuff, and that was really great to have that support and work together as a family for that. But it was really challenging with designing space usage and all the different systems and things like that, because different generations have different needs and wants. You know, we able to identify our needs and wants, and the kids, they're just, you know, they come along for the ride, and they're just really happy with moving out of a trailer. You know, and just trying to make sure everybody's needs and wants are met. So we all had to learn some, you know, new communication and try to take the time to listen to each other and not be so busy.
And try and mesh values.
Try to mesh the values.
Yeah, because the needs of folks that are senior are going to be different than young couples coming up, you know, and levels of comfort and spaciousness for wheelchairs if they are ever needed and stuff are all going to be factors.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's interesting that I'm pleased that the story of your eco-sensible house is not a story of just a structure. Many people who think of buildings think of the physical structure, how it's built, and so on, and we covered that. That's part of it. But because you want to live integrated into your environment, you're also thinking and including your relationships with the other animals and your family, everything.
Absolutely. And one of our goals is not just to build the house and to build something that was as sustainable as we could within the building code, but was to try and do it affordable. Which we've been able to do, because this house, even with all the systems and all our labor accounted for, comes in for less than a conventional house per
No
square
energy
foot.
bills either.
And no energy bills.
No energy bills.
That's good. About how much, you know, did you
$148 a square foot completed.
148 a square foot.
So right now, around here, $160 a square foot is for your basic house.
And that could last 500 years.
Yes.
But, you know, so that's just, affordable was one of the goals.
Okay.
But also was trying to build a lifestyle around less life stuff and more lifestyle.
Less life stuff and
Less
more
stuff.
lifestyle. Okay.
Because it's the style that makes us happy, not the stuff.
It's not the stuff that makes us happy. So the style for us, and the style that we wanted to have was where we could spend, you know, a third of our time working to earn income. We could spend a third of our time on the house and on the land to grow our food and work for ourselves, and a third of our time volunteering.
Wow.
And for 5 years, you know, in the 5 years that we started this project, the house only took 20 months, but it's 5 years that we've been up here, because we built, you know, chicken coops and woodworking shop, we're just now getting there. And we've got a lifestyle which we had set out as of everything we wanted to do way back when you were first here. Everything we've been able to go and achieve all of that, except rather than the house being a straw bale house, it's a cob house. That's the only difference.
Okay. And so you're creating a life.
Creating a life. A sustainable home is just a thing. It's how we live within it that truly makes it sustainable.
Well, I would love to take a little bit of a tour of some of this house to share it with the viewers, because it's such a beautiful space. Can we do that?
I'd love to show it to you.
Oh, good. Okay. Anne, tell us about this comfortable room.
Well, this is Parker's room, and he's 12. And we have 2 kids, Emily, who's 10, and Parker's 12. And each of the kids got to have some input for designing their room. And so they had some used blocks and they could decide where to put them. And this is how Parker chose to orient his blocks. And it's very beautiful. And right beside his desk, it gives some natural light. So it's beautiful. And behind me, we have a cob wall here that's been painted with a homemade milk paint. And Parker got to pick the color of green for that. And the milk is just the protein, which makes it a lot tougher. And even in a kid's room, though, it still chips a bit here and there. Kids are kids.
That's right. That's right.
What also personalizes this room is some of the artwork in here. He's got some artwork from his one grandfather on the wall here, which is an incredibly incredible carved fish. Yeah, and he's also got homemade artwork there from my dad, his other grandfather. So quite beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very warm space. I want to talk about the floor too.
Yeah, and the floor this is on the second story, and we have earthen floors on the second story with hydronic heating in them. And so they're very warm and cozy and just beautiful, and they're very durable. And then this is, all the inside walls upstairs are filled with what's called light clay infill. And that's basically wood chips, straw, and lightly covered with clay. And that's all held in there. So it's a kind of 2x4 construction in there, all used 2x4s, of course. And it makes it very soundproof between the walls. And then we've got a beautiful lime plaster on the inside there, which is extremely durable.
So the brown is the lime,
yes.
The lime plaster.
Yep.
Tell us how this exterior wall is constructed.
Yeah, this cob wall is a little bit different than the lower ones because it was originally, on the second story, it's framed with used 2x10s. And then out of the 2x10s, we have a whole bunch of used nails in it. Where did the used nails came from? All of the used lumber in the house. About 80% of the lumber in the house is used. We pulled all the nails out, and then we stuck them all back in again, about 5 buckets.
Wait a minute, what do you do sticking them back in? I mean, how do they work?
Well, we put them into the sides. If you've got the 2x10 stud laying that way, and that way, we put them this way, so it's like a porcupine of it. And what it does is it holds the cob in place, kind of like a mechanical attachment.
Oh, so it just doesn't fall through.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's held. Oh, okay. And then it dries. You've got, the structure holding it.
Yeah, the structure holds it all together. So we're using recycled materials wherever possible, and natural, recycled, beautiful, and customized to each of the kids.
That's fabulous. What a treat. Get to design your own room. I like it. I bet a lot of kids are going to be envious, Parker. So, Gord, tell me about Emily's room here.
Well, Emily's room is, Emily's room is an example of where there's just stories about the house and about the building of the house. So Emily got to design her room. She got to place her glass blocks. She got to put some vases into the wall because you can build right in.
It's amazing to have glass vases in your wall.
Yep.
With the cob, the plaster, yeah?
Yeah, and everything that you touch has a story to it. So for example, the windowsill, my dad does carving. That's wood from my dad from some of his carving. This here used to be way back when my grandpa had made an old leaf table, and this past Christmas it was reconverted and made into a dresser or a desk for Emily. We've got the bed here, which is Ann's dad made many years ago when Ann was a girl. We've got an old dresser that Ann used to use when she was young as well.
What I really love is the sense of the stories of family within family within family embedded here.
Yeah. All over the place.
Your whole house is full of stories, and it's not sterile.
It's not sterile.
It's very warm and very personable.
Every time somebody touches something on the walls, there's a story to it.
There's handprints hidden all over this.
Absolutely.
Everybody's smoothing that, yeah. Wow, loving. I mean, you can feel the love in here. You feel it. And the choice of colors that the children made for themselves. It's nice. And I love this kitchen. It feels cozy, sort of right at the center of everything. It's really nice. Give us a little brief tour.
Well, thank you. I love this kitchen too because you're in the center of everything. And this kitchen is also made out of a lot of recycled materials. We've got recycled packing crate, a black walnut packing crate. We've got from our own tree. My dad made all the handles on all the doors.
Oh.
We've even got a recycled sink. Even the kitchen sink is recycled.
Yes.
And the knife block Parker made me for Christmas. And Gord made the range hood out of a piece of copper.
Wow.
And he put in all a DC LED light and a DC fan in it.
Nice, nice.
And all the lighting in here is LED lighting, even the under cabinet LED lighting.
It's nice, yeah.
And this beautiful Doug fir on here is recycled from Glanford School, a local elementary school that got torn down. It's even got nail holes in it, which I filled, and so it just gives personality. Beautiful, tight grain fir. And this was Gord's first attempt at cabinetry in here, and he did a fabulous job. He had a real hidden talent.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And from our own fur. And right beside the stove is a fabulous thing. It was our first experiment with earth and countertops, and we made a place to put hot things right beside the stove. And it's made out of earth.
It will, take up the heat just perfectly.
Yep. And then we've got a table for making bread on, because we don't have an electric bread baker.
Of course.
Yep. We actually use about 10% electricity in a regular house, so we do that through conservation. We don't have a lot of stuff to plug in, but we live well. This is a beautiful kitchen to cook in. We have a super efficient fridge as well. This is a chest fridge, and you can tell it's a fridge because of the magnets on it.
Oh, I would never have guessed. It's the magnets that do it.
Yeah.
So how do things store in there? I mean,
really good. You get used to it. I mean, it's a different way of doing it. It looks like a freezer, and I've got baskets and food and light in there, and
you just adapt to it.
Yeah, it's super insulated.
Yeah,
I really like it.
Well, could you give us a tour of your mom's space, since this is a multi-generational house?
Well, I will ask and see how she's doing over there.
What's this?
There's a pass-through. Mom's kitchen got her breadboard right on the other side. Sometimes we make bread at the same time. You can.
Oh, I love it. That's fabulous.
We always knock.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Can we come over and show them around?
Sure.
Did you make dessert?
This is what the pass-through's
We'll be
for.
right over.
So we customized the space on the other side for Ann's parents.
It's nice. And what did you do specifically in here that your parents wanted?
Well, actually, they chose a lot of things in here for themselves, how they wanted their space to be. And for instance, the layout of the kitchen was completely their design. You know, where everything was going to be and where all the cabinets are going to be, the type of stove and the type of fridge, also a super efficient fridge, where the bread table was going to be. And it was totally customized by them, and Gord built it. We also put, Mom and Dad wanted hardwood floors in this part of their living area, so we've got a beautiful bamboo floor, and also bamboo countertops, and they, everything was customized for, you know, how they were going to live in this space. And we've got a lot of my dad's artwork here as well, so that also helps to customize their space. It's not just the actual structure, it's what you put in it. So the farm he grew up on and all the vases he makes. They also chose their glass blocks and how they were going to orient them. And they purchased some really beautiful yellow ones. The morning sun comes right through that big yellow one, right into the kitchen. It's spectacular. So they chose where all these things were going to go. And also they, Mom had this beautiful vase that she was given by a dear friend of hers, so she wanted to put in the wall. And we can just do that in a cob house. We can just stick it in the wall. And of course, Dad made that amazing door, which is a Dutch door. And on the floor, this is where we ran out of bamboo and turned it into an earthen floor. But we just make it up as we go sometimes. And the clock is kind of a real special piece because that was my mom's grandmother's clock. So we measured it and we made a special nook just for it there, and that's worked out really well. And I see Janae and Mom, you guys have met. You're looking very comfortable here.
I'm here with Marilee. Thank you for. This is a cozy place.
It is. This area in here is
I bet you spent a lot of time.
just small, cozy. We didn't need a huge front room. So
what's it like
suits the
sort
purpose.
of living with, you know, your family right next door and in a cob house? It's not probably what you started with. What's it like?
No, it's not what we started with. It can have its challenges, but you know, we work through most of them, I think.
What, the house or the family?
Well, living in close quarters.
Yeah.
But the house is wonderful. Feels safe here. It's warm. It's cozy, and it gives us the space that we need. Having the open kitchen area, it's really quite comfortable.
And I expect that you've changed your way of life by being here, by sharing this with your family. I think it's a model that many more people in your and our generation will be doing that, finding ways to share a life together as we get older and need more care, need a little attention.
Presumably,
Perhaps.
that will happen. But it's here if we need it.
Good.
Yeah,
That's good.
and that's what it's all about.
And you're warm and cozy for now. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
It's always warm and cozy.
I thought the best part, Mom, was sharing the dog. You like that?
Oh yeah, sharing the dog is wonderful because we can go away and
Oh
not
yes,
have to worry about
that's
it.
good. Somebody's going to keep an eye on the dog. That's great.
Yeah, we buy the dog food and they pay the vet. So it works. It works for us.
Sharing, yeah.
Mind you, he eats a lot. Yeah, we've had challenges learning to have less surrounding light, to just have direct light. But you look long enough and you find what works for you. Like this little lamp here, it works very well because we can have it on just a little bit if we're just in here maybe with the television on, or we can turn the 2 on for reading, or 3 for everything.
So
if we want.
you too, are, you know, because you're part of the whole pattern, you're having to conserve, be mindful of in a way
course.
you don't when you can just turn on the switches and run from the grid. But you're finding a way to work, have it work.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I see that you have some kind of screen, so there is some kind of way to see entertainment from the world.
It's just very small, and it's not digital, because that takes a little box that has to be on all the time. So it's turned off right at source all the time. So it's no phantom draws on anything that doesn't have to be plugged in.
Not everybody in your generation knows what a phantom draw is.
Well, I guess that's true.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for letting us be in your little cozy space too.
Well, thanks for coming.
Nice. Gord, tell me about the pipes and all of this out here outside the house.
Well, coming from the living roof, we've got our rainwater harvesting system. So we've got the pipes that are coming down. Pollen, bird poo is already pre-filtered out from the living roof. It comes down, and then the water comes past our hops, which is a really important medicinal herb that we use in beer. We filter the water, a pre-filter for any debris, a little debris filter over here.
That little box,
That little box,
that's doing?
Exactly. Okay. And you can see that it needs to be shaken out. The nice thing is you can see into it, so you can just pull out the screen and shake it out.
Nice.
And then from there, the water runs slightly uphill, not because of bad plumbing, but because if there's any aggregate that stays at that end, we can clean it out.
So that little hump there is for that.
Exactly.
All right.
Water comes into this tank. We have a series of cascading tanks. We have 10,000 gallons of water storage. You guys came up here in the past 24 hours. It's been raining. Well, not 24 hours. I just looked in the tank, and we've gotten about 1,000 gallons of water.
Wow.
Basically, when we get 1 inch of rain on our roof, that equates to 1,300 gallons of rainwater. And that then gets pumped out and used in our gardens.
So what's this up here, Gord?
Well, you've used our toilet in our house, right?
Yeah,
Well,
with a little sawdust beside after you get done.
That's right. So what we do is everything that's organic in the house, we collect and compost through a humanure system based on
Humanure.
Humanure, based on the Joseph Jenkins bucket system. Really simple. So over here, we have our active pile at the moment, and it's running about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It can get up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow. So it's cooking.
Yeah, we like to think we got hot shit.
Shit.
And
so you put the buckets in there, and do you add straw?
what we do is we dump the buckets in there, we open it up, we dump the buckets in, we cover it over with straw, and every 4 days I'll dump 5 or 6 buckets. Those are the types of buckets that we use right there in the ground.
5-gallon buckets.
5-gallon buckets, black actually. It's nice. It's more cosmetically
Yes, that
appealing.
would be, yes.
No smell. And once that has been added to for a year, then it sits dormant for a year.
Okay.
So
This is the pile that's been dormant for a year?
this is a pile that's been dormant for a year. And you know what? I bet you can agree that when I say that our shit doesn't stink.
I agree. Smells
and
like
try and bone that one up.
Oh man, that is bone.
It is bone.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's starting to break down too.
It's starting to break down.
It smells a bit like when you walk in the woods.
Yeah, we do testing on this, and we share this with the regional district, and they're thinking about putting in composting toilets into some of their very big parks that get like 1.5 million people a year through one of their parks.
And then they can reuse that soil. I mean, what do you do with the remains here after this is cooked down?
Well, you know that lettuce that you had in your wrap at lunchtime?
No shit.
Yeah.
Back to soil.
You're a good sport.
It was good lettuce.
Wait till you taste the cucumbers.
Oh man.
I will tell you about this box. Let me just maneuver that there. So, this box is our wood gasification boiler. So when we do not have enough sunlight to give energy to our solar thermal evacuated tubes to heat hot water for domestic and space heating, we use our wood gasification boiler as a backup.
Okay.
You're probably wondering what the difference is between a wood gasification boiler and a wood boiler.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, a gasification boiler burns at extremely high temperatures. A lot of regular wood boilers they run at about 600 to 800 degrees Fahrenheit. This runs at about 1800 to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. And so what happens is the wood goes in here into the burning chamber. Gases get sucked down into a secondary burn chamber where more air is added to it, and it gets extremely hot at 1800 degrees. The flue temperature that leaves here is about 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's pretty cool.
So that means all the rest of that energy is going into the water surrounding it, and that water is then pumped through our floors and into our big hot water storage tank.
So what you're saying is there's a big bath of water around all of this, and so you've got a fire chamber in there and a gasification chamber below that.
Correct.
Which makes it more efficient?
Makes it more efficient. And so what happens is the gases that we're burning, and those gases will burn from there's certain gases that will burn at 400 degrees up to 900 degrees. Okay. Regular wood boiler is missing those gases that are between the 600 and 900 degree mark. Those gases are being reburned in this lower chamber, which means that you're basically ending it with carbon dioxide and water vapor that's going out the top.
So you're also doing not as many gases. I mean,
correct. Yeah, exactly.
Greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
And you're using what for fuel?
We use these scraps in here plus any of the windfall that comes down. So we've had a tree that came down, a Doug fir tree, and we use probably between 2.5 and 3 cords of wood a year as backup.
For your whole household?
For the whole household, for backup
fabulous.
heating and hot water.
Real efficient.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's good. I'd do it again.
Gord and Ann, sitting here in your wonderful gardens with your house behind. Any last thoughts here?
Well, something that comes to mind is the house is behind us, but it doesn't really end there. The house is actually part of the gardens. And when you think about it, the gardens are actually made out of the same materials that the house is. I mean, we've got clay, sand, straw in our garden for mulch. I mean, the house is made out of the same kind of material. And also we water with rainwater. It's all connected. So.
And it's the same materials going into your compost.
Yeah.
That you came out from the food. Yeah, right?
Yeah,
the whole cycle
right.
is here. You've got the whole cycle going.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's just an interconnection. When we said at the very beginning that there is no line that differentiates the house and the inhabitants from the outside, there isn't. So that's the way it should be.
And in this garden we've got lots of frogs and snakes and lizards, and they eat the bugs, and we tried to create a habitat that welcomed them into it, and you know what? They moved in.
And you know, in 2 years, you'll be a part of this garden.
Because my compost from their composting toilet will go into the hot pile, and then the cool pile, come back to the garden, feed you all for that year, and that means that in 2 to 3 years we need to come back and visit.
So
come for
See
dinner.
what's happening there. Come for dinner. You too. Ann and Gord Baird with their eco-sensible house that does not end at the boundaries of those walls. I'm Janaea Donaldson. You're watching Peak Moment in a wonderful place. Join us next time.